we have talked about the protests that have taken place. I know some federal workers have been protesting outside of the Treasury, and there are some who are planning to protest outside of USAID.
It's happening right now, actually, and thankfully some Democrats like Raskin, Van Hollen, and others are joining the protests outside of USAID.
It's important for Democrats to just show up so that they can communicate to the American public that this is a problem. I mean, we're back where, I feel like it was yesterday I was saying this, but I guess it was probably like 6 years ago. You need, as the Democrats need to react to these things in a way that communicates to the American public that this is wrong, this is destructive, this is going to be problematic. This is like, I kept using this example over and over again, and I guess it was like 5 or 6 years ago. If you look at a movie or a TV show, it's the reaction shots that let the audience contextualize what is happening on the screen. It's like when, it's always the reaction shots that basically instruct the viewer how they're to respond. Some people make an assessment before that, but some people need the reaction shot. Here are some anti-ICE demonstrators in LA. They have taken over the 101 freeway. And this was on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Air quality was horrible, apparently, as far as I know, too, at that time. Both lanes. And hundreds also marched in Seattle in opposition to deportation rates. Now, you may ask, why are all these people protesting about all of these dangerous criminals who are being deported?
They must love crime.
Because we know, incidentally, Kristi Noem brought this up, and some idiots on Twitter. Those planes that were sent to Colombia that were turned back and were only allowed to bring deportees back into Colombia under the terms that Colombia had set, which were no different than they had been before. They just basically maintain those conditions. On that plane, or those two planes of 200 Colombians, at least 20 were children, unlikely to have criminal records. And according to Colombia, almost none of them had criminal records. So the idea that these are, we're only deporting criminals is just absurd. Here is, in fact, this is what the Obama administration and the Biden administration were already doing. Here is a report from NBC 10 in Boston of a teenager who basically was disappeared for a couple of days. Also, incidentally, not a criminal.
Lynn, teenager, is in ICE custody following a fight with her younger brother. A neighbor, hearing all of this commotion, called police to report a domestic disturbance. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Priscilla Casper.
And I'm Colton Bradford. Now, many locals were under the impression that ICE would only target violent criminals. NBC 10's Oscar Margain is live for us from the State House tonight, where a rally was held earlier. Oscar, good evening to you. What's the relation between this case that is playing out in Lynn and the demonstration that was outside of Beacon Hill today?
Well, Well, Colton, the pro-immigrant groups that were at the rally today say that the recent rhetoric by the president and the recent operations by ICE is causing confusion, misinformation, even fear among the immigrant community about the role between local police and ICE. Now, the family we spoke to exclusively in Lynn say that they share that fear that the immigration agents are going to be going after the rest of their family after their daughter was taken by ICE after that issue and disturbance call over at their home between her and her brother.
Zenaida Hernandez is holding back tears, pleading with federal immigration authorities to release her daughter or allow her to be deported along with her. 18-year-old Zenaida Barrera was arrested by Lynn police on Monday after responding to a domestic disturbance call. Her stepfather says she and her 12-year-old brother were arguing over a cell phone. The police report says the boy was pushed to the ground. That same morning, the teen was taken to court to see a judge, but to her lawyer's surprise, she was taken by ICE.
It's unusual for ICE to take an individual into custody who has legal status here in this country.
Lynn Mayor Jared Nicholson assures his police department does not ask about a person's immigration status and worries these cases will hurt public trust.
If ICE wants to really partner with communities on public safety, that they need to be able to look at all of the circumstances.
Let's pass the same.
So, thankfully, the charges were basically dropped. Like the Essex County in Massachusetts, they dropped the charges, and she was freed after those charges had initially been filed against her. The girl's 18 years old. She's an 11th grader. She works at Chipotle. Her family came over to the United States a little over 2 years ago from Nicaragua, and they did cross without documentation, but they turned themselves over to immigration authorities, and they've been applying for asylum ever since. Her mother, Zenaida Hernandez Molina, says her children were having an ordinary sibling spat over a cell phone when a neighbor apparently heard the dispute.
Can confirm that happens between 18-year-olds and 12-year-olds.
I have a little sister. We definitely got into it, but in this situation, if I was in this country without documentation, perhaps this could have happened to me.
What's up with that neighbor?
Yeah. By the way, use due diligence, even if this was some innocent and they thought it was a domestic dispute. I don't know.
Don't call the cops.
Don't always just try to make sure you have your grasp of the situation before you do that kind of thing. But it seems as though she was taken, according to the Boston Globe, to a facility in Maine, was eventually released. But it was obviously incredibly traumatic, and ICE
the reason why she was released
to comment
is because it's reported on television.
And the district attorney was basically saying, we're not going to pursue these kinds of charges. Callahan, who I guess is the attorney in the criminal case, said that after Barrera was arrested and taken to the Lynn District Court on Monday, the judge in the case ordered Barrera released, but the court officers took her to the lockup area of the courthouse instead of immediately letting her go. A court officer soon told him that ICE officers had shown up at the court with a detainer request and taken the girl into custody, Callahan said. Seth Moulton, who represents Massachusetts 6th District, which includes Lynn, said in the statement he was grateful for the cooperation of the local authorities, etc. But this part at the end just really broke my heart. Since Barrera's arrest, her family has been praying for her return home. Her brother William stopped going to school for fear of also being arrested by ICE, and her mother was unable to go to work at a daycare. They're treating her like a delinquent, and she's not, said Hernandez Molina, 37, earlier this week. She is the joy of this household. And she was reunited with her loved ones eventually. But I'm really starting to get very angry about the mainstream press, frankly, not questioning these claims about criminality of the folks that are being rounded up. Because you know why these claims are going unchecked? It's because the folks that can contradict the fact that they are criminals, or that they aren't criminals, are terrified to say anything. They don't want any spotlight on them. They don't want anyone being alerted to their whereabouts or the fact they're trying to live under the shadows of this disgusting dystopian system that doesn't allow them to come to this country in any real way, because we've choked off and are continuing to do so the legal and easier means for people to come into this country. And so, like, you have these little stories that come out where it's obvious this girl who had a fight with her brother over a cell phone is not a criminal, but most of our mainstream press is just taking these claims about criminality about these immigrants at face value, which is why it's going to be okay to house them, apparently, in Guantanamo Bay, a detention center that can be turned into a camp that concentrates people and then deports them in inhumane conditions. That's the road that we're on right now.
And I want to say two things. First off, the Laken Riley Act means that they could have deported this girl.
Yeah.
She's accused of a crime. It doesn't matter if she was convicted or even if charges were pressed. I think just by the notion that she was accused, they could have deported her in that moment. A. And B, I wanted to say one thing about the Guantanamo thing, because I think that broke last week. We have never done this. The only time that there were Haitian migrants who were stopped before they got into U.S. territory and were kept at Guantanamo. And then there were what do they call those? Something combatants who we put into there who were not, who had never hit U.S. soil. The idea that we are expanding our ability to use Guantanamo as a prison by shipping people from the U.S. is unprecedented. We've never done that. Yep. The whole thing that Guantanamo has functioned for this country is to basically be a extrajudicial territory that we control, but we do not have constitutional rights that exist there. Once you come into U.S. territory, we have a system of laws and a constitution that isn't just like the rights are bestowed on those people who are there. We, as a country and a government, are bound by those laws. And the idea that we now would extend this sort of like black site rules to people who had been in this country is crossing a Rubicon.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, because when Bill Clinton processed, I think it was Cuban
enemy and combatants, thank you,
Haitian migrants back during his administration in Guantanamo Bay, say if that were happening today, I'd be in opposition to it as well. It's inhumane. Likely those circumstances were back then as well, because Guantanamo Bay is, as Sam says, it's basically an extrajudicial place for these kinds of abuses to happen, and we know that they did. But it's one thing to use Guantanamo Bay to process these immigrants before they enter into the United States. It's another thing to, as Sam says, ship them out of the country where they have been. And in this instance, for this example, she was seeking asylum, as were her family, and just shipping out people on U.S. soil to this black site.
Well, that's also addressed the public safety concern that a lot of people made hay of, say, last year. We are less safe because of, say, the attack on sanctuary city laws. The idea that police departments accepted those and thought they were an important part of business isn't because they were woke. It's because that's just, frankly, obvious. You need to have communication with everybody that you are meant to keep safe. And, like, so it's interesting that some of the same people who would minimize the Guantanamo thing were hyperventilating about how much they hate or they're afraid of immigrant crime last year.
All right, let me update this because I've been corrected on the Laken Riley Act. You can be accused of shoplifting, burglary, theft, or larceny, and to be deported without due process. I guess in this instance, assault wouldn't be the case, although I don't know.
I would, the charges were not filed. I'm like 80% sure that Laken Riley Act says you have to be charged. But the point is that you can charge somebody easily if there's an accusation made against them. I mean, in this instance, her family her brother's not going to press charges, right? So in that example that we just gave,
dropped the charges, but if they dropped the charges, they may have been filed. We got to find out.
Well, but the district, they chose not to
actually file.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, but that's not going to be the case everywhere else in the country. Of course not,
and we're not going to hear that story. The story's going to happen many times, and we're not going to see it on TV.
Right.
This happened at the Toronto Raptors
game
yesterday.
Also, no one cares about the NHL, but it was happening all over, one of the Canadian teams because they play both the Canadian and U.S. national anthems prior to those games. Booze.
Stop playing our space.
Everywhere. Yeah, I feel badly for the singer because it's not anything she's doing or he's doing, but
let's play this.
8-year-old Kyra Daniel.
Sounds like the guy, like the announcer's booing.
Yeah. That's loud, and you see half the people aren't even in their seats.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. Making America great again.
Exactly.
Making our top trade allies despise us.
Look, the resistance is going to have to come from outside the house, I think. So thank you to all of our international folks. Canada announced Chrystia Freeland said that she was going to do tariffs to go after red states. And also, which is, turnabout goes fair play. But after billionaires, I think the world should take a close hard look at how they can undercut people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all these other freaks and cut their knees out from beneath them.
I saw some funny posts about how we're reverse engineering Canadian nationalism right now. But it's in the Liberals' interest in Canada right now because the polling had them with Trudeau since before he decided he was going to step aside for the party to choose a new leader. They were getting shellacked, Biden losing to Trump by Trump getting 400 electoral votes levels of what the Conservatives were gain in Canada, and maybe this gives them a new way to slow the bleeding there by opposing Trump and conservatism.
Doesn't make Polyev look good.
No.
Angela from Alberta says it's not you, it's your president. But to be fair,
he won the.
We voted for him.
Yeah.
I've always thought people saying, hey, don't be mean to American, during the Iraq war, don't be mean to Americans if they're on vacation in Spain. It's I don't, as an American, sure. I don't know.
I mean,
fine.
Any mockery of Americans is definitionally punching up because we're the world superpower. So just go at it. Who cares?
When we do stuff like that, mock us.
Yeah.
Be mean to us.
Yeah. We're the bullies. You get to make fun of us, and anybody with a brain is not going to take it seriously.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.